Ready, Set, RC, back again today, and today we are doing our tips series. This should be episode number 4 in the tips series, and feel free to go back and check them out, guys. I think the first one we started off was a Tuesday's tips, but we just decided to just splash these in as we have them done. So rather than just releasing them only on Tuesdays, I'm going to release them throughout. The first tips series was back when we had the Super Baja Ray on the bench, and we were doing, I think it was based on the screws. At the time, a lot of people were going around and removing the entire shell to get to the inner workings of the vehicle. And I felt it was one of those things that I just had to put out there and explain to people that that's not necessary to do on these trucks. And the same thing I'm going to do here on the Super Rock Ray. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to illustrate exactly what needs to be done, what screws need to be removed to take the Super Rock Ray out. Secret here, guys, it's the same screws on the Baja Ray, Super Baja Ray, and on the Rock Ray and Super Rock Ray, it's the same 14 screws on those two. This is not going to be anything new to anyone that owns a Baja Ray, a Rock Ray, a Super Baja Ray. The 12 screws between the two are the same. There's only 2 additional screws, and I'll show you where those are on the Super Rock Ray. Needed to get this entire cage off to get to the inner workings. They're all located in the same location. And as I said, I'll illustrate it exactly where those screws are. So other things that we're going to do on this tips video, guys, this is going to be a little bit different than the other tips videos. The last run, as you guys saw on the spindles on here, broke off, not just on this side, but also on the other side as well. So one crash, both spindles broke. We have since purchased the metal spindles on this, and I'll list all part numbers in the description of the video so that you guys can clearly see exactly what parts we're putting onto this truck. I will say this, when the spindles first broke, reached out to Losi directly. One of my subscribers actually provided this information, that it was on their Facebook page to contact them if you're having spindle problems, and they will replace the plastic spindles. So it's a plastic spindle that they replace them with, and this is what you get from them. I paid $0 for this. They provided this as just a warranty service to the truck, which was great. And just so that you guys are fully aware, they provided these spindles even when the spindles were out of stock. So don't look on the site and say, hey, they do not have the parts in stock, they're not going to have the spindle to provide to me. Reach out to them, because they actually sourced these spindles from their Canadian warehouse, and they were able to supply to us in a matter of a week. We're going up to an 18 tooth pinion on here, so we're going to take this up to 18 tooth. Figured I wanted to go a little bit more, and last up, we're going to go over to XT90s. I have no problems with the EC5s on here, but my batteries are XT90s, so got the adapter online. Purchased this up. Similar to the adapters that I got for the Super Baja Ray, order these up from the same gentleman. I'll put his name and information in the description below. But also, we got these from him as well, and we're going to put these on the Super Rock Ray. So next up, let's go ahead and let's remove those spindles. So from this point now, we have the aluminum spindles on here. And I just want to stop for a moment just to kind of go through the issues that we had in putting on any of these parts today. So the spindles went on smooth, no issues whatsoever, went on very well. The only thing that I noticed, and I've been noticing this ever since I had the truck, was that the tires kind of point out, especially if you try to line this up, or if you're trying to set your steering properly on this. You'll see that you'll have to set to almost 100% to one direction. And I wanted to correct that a little bit, because what I noticed was the tie rods on here were off. I mean, I just adjusted it on one side, but I noticed the tie rods were completely off on here. So I adjusted it, and it looks like the wheels are still out somewhat, but not as bad as it was before. So I adjusted that, and hopefully you guys will see that on the next run. We have the new 18-tooth pinion in this. The bigger issue that I noticed that this truck has, or my truck has, I don't know if everybody else is having this problem, is that when you change out the pinion, it's a very simple system on how to change out the pinion on this truck. But what I noticed was the grub screw that holds the pinion in place is held with blue Loctite. Fine, I have no problems with that. But what I have a problem with is all in the interior of the pinion is loaded with red Loctite all throughout. Once you remove the grub screw on this, the pinion wasn't even able to twist. It would not come off. I applied some heat, and then the pinion, and then twisted a little bit with some wrenches, and then the pinion came right off after that. But I just want you guys to know, if you do experience this, put a little heat on there, and then after you put a little heat on it, just take 2 wrenches and just twist it a little bit. It didn't damage the pinion in any way. You guys can clearly see that. And I didn't damage the shaft in any way because I had it locked on firm. But I just want you guys to know that it may take a little bit more than your normal pull to get that pinion off. So next up, we're going to go ahead and we're going to take the cage off. I'm going to show you guys some illustrations. As I said, it's 14 manageable screws to remove the entire cage. So from what you guys can see here now, you have the 4 screws on the bottom. I have them numbered as 1, 2, 3, and 4. Next, hopefully this comes up well on the camera, is that there are 2 screws underneath the cage in the rear that need to be removed. Hopefully those are coming up pretty well. I apologize, guys, but those pictures are very hard to get. It's a very tight space. Next, screws 7, 8, 9, and 10 are going to be the screws towards the back with the shocks. That is 11 and 12. Screws 13 and 14. And you can do them in any order. So next up, we're going to replace those battery connectors, and we'll come back with all the work completed. Okay, we're back. So now we have the XT90 connectors on here. I'll show you guys some shots of what that looks like. We didn't have to do any modifications to the opening to get the XT90s on here. They went in perfectly with that new connector for it. So at this point, let's just recap on everything that we've done on this truck for this video. We have the aluminum spindles on here, and as I stated before, they went on with no issues whatsoever. I just took the time to do some alignment with the front end at that point too, since I saw that there was some issues with the wheels kind of doing this outward positioning on here. So I cleaned that up, and what I noticed, and I said this before on the video, what I noticed with the truck is that I would have to send my trim settings all the way 100 to one side. So once I did that, I did test it up, and it looks like the trims are back closer to neutral than they were before. Next up, we changed over that pinion over to an 18-tooth pinion. Originally, what comes on this truck is a 16-tooth pinion. We're going to see what that's like when we take the truck out on its next run. The only issues that I had in regards to removing the pinion, I don't know if everyone else is going to have this problem, is that the pinion itself had not only blue Loctite on the grub screw, it had red Loctite on the shaft of the motor and inside the pinion. So it took a little bit of heat and took a little bit of, just taking 2 wrenches and muscling it off, and that eventually came off. And lastly was the XT90 connectors and removing the cage. And as I said before, guys, it's 14 screws to remove the cage. Very straightforward in doing so. The only thing I will say is that you will have to apply some pressure to remove these sides. And I say grab it by the cage underneath here. Do not grab it by the shell, because what you'll do is you'll put some strain on the screws here. Grab it underneath by the cage on both sides, and you will lift it past. There's one edge over here that you're going to have to lift it past. You'll lift it clearly past that entry right there. Once you do that, the cage comes off very straightforward. The concerns that I have, and I'll say this other than what I've experienced between this and the Super Baja Ray and even the Baja Ray, this one is a little bit more adjustments in getting the cage back on. And that will require you to kind of monitor the back end more than anything. I didn't have any issues in putting the cage on with the front end. The back end clearly requires a lot more time and adjustment to make sure that everything lines up perfectly when you're putting it back on. Outside of that, we're going to leave it here. Please like, comment, subscribe. Check us out on Instagram for our latest post to the channel. This is Ready Set RC, signing out. Thanks again, guys.